Alright, today I'm going to talk about the 3.5 Players Handbook. So, after Wizards of the Coast bought TSR, and after they put out a few things, they came out with this. They totally rewrote D&D, and I think they must have paid Dave Arneson off because they dropped Advanced from it and just made it just Dungeons and Dragons. So, when I first looked through this, I thought it was better in every way from older versions. But it seemed to answer a lot of the questions for rules lawyers, like what happens if you use a crossbow as a club? How much damage does it do? There's an actual rule in here. But I became less enamored with this with time. So, one of the things it did was they unified the modifiers for ability scores, for attributes. And they go all the way up to 45. You have the same number of bonus spells for every class. You don't have spell failure, which is something in first edition. The strength table goes up to 47, and it gives you examples of monsters who have that strength. So, for example, a toad has a strength of 1, a human of 10, a great worm gold dragon somewhere around 46 or 47. So, dexterity goes up to 33. Constitution goes up to 35. Intelligence goes up to 33. Wisdom up to 33. And charisma goes up to 33. So that's a lot higher than 18 for the maximum there. And so when we get to the races, half-orcs are back. I have all the ones from first edition, plus half-orcs. Half-orcs were in first edition, but they weren't in second edition. They'd been taken out. And we get, there was one picture in first edition, but here's a picture of every single one. So, one of the things they had was each class is each race has a preferred class. So, and another change was they changed infravision. So now they had dark vision and night vision. And so dwarves had dark vision, which could see in the dark, but elves only had night vision, which could only see outdoors in the dark. My favorite class for dwarves was fighter. For elves, it was wizard. Gnomes were like the illusionists, but the illusionists died during second edition, so their favorite class now is bard. Half-orcs, they were in first edition. They were assassins would be their favorite class if they use those terms, but now it's barbarian, which makes more sense, I think. Halflings, their favorite class is thief. And, of course, there's humans, too. And one of the things that's different, though, is every race can be every class now. It used to be only dwarves and halflings could not be wizards. Now they can. So you can have like a halfling paladin, you can have a dwarf wizard, all kinds of things are now open. And another big change was in first edition, you had 5 different categories of saving throws. And these were based originally on particular monsters. Poison was against snakebite. Petrification and polymorph was originally the save against Medusa. the breath weapon one was for dragons, and then there were two magic ones. One for wand, staff, or rod, and the other one for spells. But they have made it so that there's only three categories, which not on this chart. This is the chart. They have the same experience points though for every class. That it used to be some classes would advance quicker than others. So if you were a paladin, you would advance a little bit slower than just a regular fighter. If you were a thief, you'd progress a little bit faster than the other classes. So, for example, and multi-class characters would advance a little slower. So if you had a party whose average level was 5th, the thief would probably be 6th level, the druid might be 6th level, and the fighter magic user would probably be 4th level. So let's get into the classes. Okay, I wanted to talk about the spells, so I got diverted there. So now there are only 3 versions of saving throws. There's the Fortitude save, which is like poison, and the Reflex save, which is like breath weapon save, and the Will save is like you're saving in spells. So that makes a lot more sense. As far as the classes, I have the Barbarian class, which has a whole bunch of abilities here. Now, it's one of my complaints about first edition monks is I had too many different things to keep track of. And now every class is that way. And in the older editions, you would get multiple attacks if you were a high-level fighter. But in this version, this is true of every class. And the extra attacks, though, have a penalty. They don't have as good a chance to hit as that first attack does. So if you're a 20th level barbarian, the first attack's at plus 20, the second one at plus 15, the next one at plus 10, and the last one at plus 5. Now, next class is the Bard, and I played one, but I was too traumatized by the second edition Bards so I didn't really stick with it for more than one level, because when I played second edition Bards and when I saw other people play second edition Bards, you'd always reach this point where you would say, oh man, I wish I'd played a wizard. I'd be able to cast 4th level spells by now. So the spells have changed a bit, in which every class that can do spells can do 0 level spells, which they had cantrips all the way back to first edition. And they were like little useless things like change the color of something. But in this one, some of the weaker first level spells have become 0 level spells. So a Bard can do 2 level spells at first level, but doesn't gain first level spells until 3rd level. And there's a limited number of spells that you would know. You know 4 0-level spells at first level, and at second level you might know some first level spells even though you can't cast them yet, which makes a little sense. Okay, and the Cleric, yeah, they made sort of a compromise between the first edition clerics, which were generalists, and the second edition clerics, which were again specialty priests that could do different spears depending on which kind of cleric, what kind of priest it was. So here, the cleric spells are divided into domains, but most of them fall into a general category. And so you have the number of spells that you can do per day plus the number of domain spells you can do. All right, so here's some examples of deities and which spells they can do, or which domains they have. Druid. Yeah, druids, people stopped playing druids during the 2nd edition era. My fears about them turned out to be completely true. So in 3rd edition, they were improved. One of the things about 3rd edition clerics is they could substitute a curing spell for one that they'd memorized. And with druids, they could substitute an animal summoning spell for something they'd memorized. And the shape-changing abilities were much improved. And some people think that clerics and druids were made too powerful in this edition, to the extent that they were sometimes called Codzilla, Cod standing for cleric or druid. Alright, so fighter is next. So even fighters have a bunch of abilities there. You know, not as bad as monks, but I miss 1st edition where you could give a newcomer who's never played before a fighter, and it wasn't that hard for them to learn how to do it. Now it's become more complicated. So monks have changed a bit. Their hit dice have gone from four-sided in 1st edition up to 8-sided. And they have this thing called Flurry of Blows, which is sort of like the speed special maneuver from 1st edition, Oriental Adventures, but they have a penalty to hit at 1st level, which by 9th level, that penalty goes away, and they become just as good at Flurry of Blows as they are at normal rolls to hit. They still have a whole bunch of abilities, but every class has that now. Paladin is still around, and they still get spells, still get cleric spells. Well, they don't get cleric spells, they have their own spell list, which includes a bunch of cleric spells. Rangers have 8-sided dice like they did in 1st edition, but they don't have 2 8-sided dice at 1st level like they did in 1st edition. They just have 1. Now, I think in 3.0 they had 10-sided hit dice, and that was deemed too powerful. Alright, so thieves have been renamed rogues. And again, they have a bunch of abilities here. And there's a new class called Sorcerer. And when I first heard about 3rd edition, the person who told me about it was playing with a party where there was both a sorcerer and a wizard. But as it turned out, nobody played wizards anymore after a while. It was just sorcerers. Sorcerers are like wizards, except they can do more spells, at least more spells per day, but they don't have a spell book, and they have a limited number of spells they can cast. So at 1st level, they can do 5 0-level spells and 3 1st-level spells. But as far as the number of spells they know 4 0-level spells and 2 1st-level spells. Now, I still use this chart for my old school games. I use this chart as a guide to how many if I'm not starting at 1st level, how many spells should an elf know when they first start out in their spell book, and I double that number for wizard. So if we're starting with 5th level characters, they would know, an elf would know 4 1st-level spells and 2 2nd-level spells, while a wizard would know 8 1st-level spells and 4 2nd-level spells. Alright, so the wizard class, they cast fewer spells per day, but they have a spell book, so they don't have a limit on how many spells they can know, and they automatically gain a spell in their spell book every level they advance. But they have fewer abilities here. One thing is different about third edition is the art. There's a particular art style for third edition which I didn't like. In first edition, it is so often easy to tell who's the wizard, who's the fighter, who's the cleric. The fighters tended to look like knights or barbarians. The wizards had pointy hats. But in third edition, it's sometimes hard for me to tell what class that's supposed to be. Now, one thing that's different is they have this system of skills. And each class gets a certain number of skill points. With rogues, which are thieves, they get the most. They get 8 plus their intelligence modifier every level they advance. And you start off with that number, whatever your class would get, multiplied by 4. So you start with a good number of skill points. Now, the skills are educated differently than they were in first edition. The thieves had these abilities, and you'd roll a percentile. And in second edition, they added non-weapon proficiencies, which you'd roll on D20, and the skills are rolled on D20 in this one. Only in second edition, you try to roll low, and this one you try to roll high. Now, there's a bunch of skills. Let's go over the whole list. Appraise, balance, bluff, climb, concentration, craft, decipher script, diplomacy, disable device, disguise, escape artist, forgery, gather information, handle animal, heal, hide, intimidate, jump, knowledge, arcana, knowledge, architecture and engineering, knowledge, dungeoneering, knowledge, geography, knowledge, history, knowledge, local, knowledge, nature, knowledge, nobility and royalty, knowledge, religion, knowledge, the planes, listen, move silently, open, lock, perform, profession, ride, search, sense motive, sleight of hand, speak language, spellcraft, spot, survival, swim, tumble, use device, and rope. And so that's a lot of skills, but certain skills are set aside as being easier to learn if you're a particular class. And it's a lot of skills here. So rogues are better at learning these skills, but having them be done on a 20 side makes everything 5% increments. So you have a lot less flexibility than you do if it's a percent, where you can have something that gives you a plus 3% to do something. Now it's 5% increments for everything. So, and it goes into descriptions of these different skills, but rogues get the most skills, but some of these skills are there just to allow other classes to be skillful at something. So, for example, it used to be you could tell what spell somebody's casting at you, but now you have to make a skill roll to do it. A lot of things you used to automatically be able to do, like look around the room, now you have to make a skill roll to do it. This kind of misses the point of the thief class in original D&D. That everything the thieves could do were things that characters were doing anyway. It should have been called the dungeoneering class. But thieves were supposed to be better at these things. So everybody can surprise somebody, but thieves can roll to move silently, and if they fail that, then they roll for surprise. But this, in order to look around the room, you got to make a skill roll. It drove me crazy. I think I'm going to stop here because it's getting too long. So.